I didn't know if you heard, Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of Raw this Monday. Perhaps you heard. Perhaps. It's been, it's a little tiny tidbit of news, but let's read the article from PW Insider, who are Mike Johnson, who was the first to report the news. This is how it came to our ears here. The main event for tonight's Monday Night Raw broadcast changed at the last minute to Becky Lynch versus Asuka after two talents walked out late in the day as Raw went on the air in Norfolk, Virginia. The word making the rounds backstage at the taping is that Sasha Banks took issue with some of the plan created for the original main event, a Raw six-pack challenge to determine Bianca Belair's next challenger at Hell in a Cell. Banks had a meeting with Vince McMahon, and the belief among those we've heard from is that when McMahon didn't choose to change the direction of the plans, Banks wouldn't back down on her issues and made the decision to leave the taping. Naomi, her WWE Women's Tag Team Championship partner, left with Banks, even though she was also booked in the main event match. WWE quickly shot several new segments with Adam Pearce and Becky Lynch to instead set up Asuka versus Lynch as the new main event. And at the time, Mike Johnson said, this is a developing story, so there may be additional updates. And boy, oh boy, was he not wrong. Oh boy. So I'm going to switch over to the condensed version here over on the Figure 4 online. Fightful Select later reported that Naomi was originally scheduled to win the match. The six-pack challenge was set to feature Banks, Naomi, Doudrop, Nikki, ASH, Asuka, and Becky Lynch, which was advertised at the start of Raw. In a later segment backstage, Lynch told Adam Pearce that she saw Banks and Naomi leaving with their gear and tried to get herself named the number one contender. This is, of course, one of the skits that they shot. Pearce refused and instead turned the six-pack challenge into a singles match between Lynch and Asuka, where the winner would face Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair. Later during the show, and this went over really well, by the way, just rounds of rousing applause from everyone, a well-received moment. Later during the show, announcer Corey Graves mentioned that Banks and Naomi had, quote-unquote, unprofessionally left the arena. Banks and Naomi are the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. They successfully defended the titles against Natalya and Shayna Baszler on this Friday's SmackDown. Now, since then, actually in the same night, later on, WWE themselves released a statement, I think to the New York Post, if I'm not mistaken. Let's read it. Quote, when Sasha Banks and Naomi arrived at the arena this afternoon, they were informed of their participation in the main event of tonight's Monday Night Raw. During the broadcast, they walked into WWE Head of Talent Relations John Laurinaitis' office with their suitcases in hand, placed their tag team championship belts on his desk, and walked out. They claimed they weren't respected enough as tag team champions, and even though they had 8 hours to rehearse and construct their match, they claimed they were uncomfortable in the ring with two of their opponents, even though they'd had matches with those individuals in the past with no consequence. Monday Night Raw is a scripted live TV show whose characters are expected to perform the requirements of their contract. We regret that we were unable to deliver as advertised tonight's main event. Oh, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but I want to make sure, like, for posterity's sake, we have the entire story, that we have as much context to where we're moving on here, okay? So a little later on in the evening, there is a Twitter user by the name of at Adidas_head88, who has tweeted about Naomi / Trinity Fatu in the past. He's considered to be a slash. Don't do the slash before saying something. He's considered to be a friend / a member of the inner circle of Trinity Fatu, the Usos. Like, he's said things regarding Naomi in the past that have been proven to be, if not true, suspiciously close to the truth, right? So he tweeted out a thread, and I'm going to read this to you because it does provide some insight, and you'll see in a second where I'm going with this. So this is from why can't I pronounce the fucking shoe name? Adidas_head88. You are approached in February as being put in a tag team after both being promised big feuds at WrestleMania. You bite the bullet and you put everything you got into being a tag team. It works, you get over, win the titles at WrestleMania, and become merch pushers. Because they got themselves over. 5 weeks into your reign, you show up to live TV and ready to work. You are told you will be in the main event and you are happy. You are both told that one of you will be going over from pinning the other. You have questions why that decision was made and how it helps y'all. You request a meeting with your boss to discuss it. Your boss takes the meeting and everything is actually going well. He understands your concerns. The meeting ends well and the match is told to be reconstructed. For some reason, producers get mad about it. You then ask, with one of your members going over, what happens to your titles? You are told basically that you will just be carrying the belts. They want to use you both to help both women's champions get more over. Bianca versus Naomi, Sasha versus Ronda. Neither one of you will win the solo titles, and you won't defend your tag titles until Money in the Bank. You ask for another meeting with your boss, but this time you are being called spoiled. A producer walks away screaming. He comes back and tells both of you to fix your attitudes. Y'all have a brief meeting amongst yourselves and decide to stand up for yourselves. You go to another boss and make it clear you just have concerns. You ask, why are we even in the match and why aren't other women in it? You ask why your titles have no stories for 2 months. Again, you are met with fix your attitudes. So after one final meeting with yourselves and asking others, you make the ultimate decision as a team. It's sad how one side is trying to create a fucked up narrative. The final tweet in the thread reads as follows. Also, it was asked why were Nikki Ash and Doudrop in the match instead of starting their program tonight. Not Naomi nor Sasha talked down about being in the ring with either one. I don't know how that got flipped. Now, this was all sort of treated as some form of hearsay, but Pro Wrestling Insider, the very next day, put together a report that essentially corroborated what this person here, Adidas_head88, had talked about in this thread. So there's a link, there's a direct correlation between the two here. So, as it stands right now, we've even learned that Naomi's contract is up soon, right? So, will she be resigning? Will there be renegotiations? I don't know. But we don't know about the Sasha Banks thing and so on and so on. Now, I'm glad everyone is very passionate about this topic and with reason, right? Because Sasha Banks is one of the biggest stars in the company. She's she's an absolute proven draw. Earlier on, J.K. Schwal dropped a super chat, and he says, I'm here for your 23-minute victory lap. And I know what he's talking about. A couple of months ago, I dropped just before WrestleMania, right? I dropped a segment. I had a rant here on the channel, just completely baffled at the fact that Sasha Banks was being thrown in a nothing tag team match at WrestleMania when she's fucking Sasha Banks. She is the woman who, when she made her return to WWE on Monday Night Raw, that segment outdrew anything that Ronda Rousey had been doing up until that point. The facts are there. I've been giggling, having a lot of fun at the idea that I've become a Sasha stan. It's like, hey, Sasha stan army, stick by me and trust me. You much prefer to have the Sasha stan army on your side than the opposite. I've been having poking a little fun at myself, memeing a little bit. But it's not even a question of being a stan. It's like there is observable evidence to show that people will tune into your goddamn sports entertainment show when Sasha Banks is on it. And it baffled me back then that they didn't know what to do with her, that the best that they could figure out was to put her in a tag team to have her go after the titles in a fucking, it was a 4-way match at WrestleMania? Like, one of the death knells for any wrestler where it's like, we don't have anything for you, we're just gonna, but we're gonna get you the WrestleMania payday, here you go. There's, 4-way tag team matches and the fucking Andre the Giant Battle Royal thing, which isn't even on WrestleMania anymore, right? I digress. Sasha Banks, I was telling you guys back then, she is not long for WWE. I don't want to sit here and say, I told you so, but I told you so. She's not long for WWE. She is bigger than WWE. People are going to say, Sasha's going Hollywood. Sasha's been going Hollywood for a while. She's in The Mandalorian. She's doing Marvel red carpet deals. She's on fucking things with fucking Kevin Hart. That YouTube show that he has where they sit in fucking vats of ice cold water. And Kevin fucking Hart himself is sitting there in his tub of water and he's telling Sasha Banks, yeah, you're great in WWE and all, but you're big, you'll be bigger than that. He literally tells her that. She gets a spot on The Mandalorian on Disney Plus in the Star Wars franchise. WWE barely makes a peep out of it. Why? Because she's getting these opportunities herself. Why? Because she's Sasha Banks and there's no other reason to deliver unto you. Because she is a fantastic wrestler. She has charisma out the ass. People love her. Whether she's a heel or a babyface, and I would even argue people like her better as a heel than a babyface. They'll still cheer for her. Sasha Banks is special. Sasha Banks is money. Sasha Banks is ratings. We get these stupid ass arguments on the internet where it's like, do we attract the casual fans? With someone like Sasha Banks, who is a bona fide star, not a manufactured star like you're going to try and make with Roman Reigns at this point. God bless Roman Reigns. He deserves to go off to Hollywood, do anything than put his body through what he's been going through for the past few years. He's ready for it, but he's not half the actor or has half the presence that Sasha Banks does. She is their mainstream crossover star. She is their current John Cena, but they don't want her. She wasn't picked. Vince didn't say, we're anointing you. She's doing this rogue. She's essentially doing the Matt Cardona internet title thing, but like on a larger scale where she's getting herself, quote unquote, over, to use wrestling parlance since it's a wrestling show we're on. She's getting herself over with a more mainstream crowd as opposed to sticking to her guns and doing what Vince wants her to do. This is the thing. This is the biggest deal. I can't even begin to tell you how huge this shit is that Sasha walks out. And I don't care if you like Sasha Banks or not. You have to respect someone who turns around and says, I know my worth. I know my value. And I do not need this. Few months ago, she's on the Stone Cold podcast. She's been dropping hints when you start to think about it. When you start looking around the environment and you're like, you know what? Sasha's been warning us. She's been telling us this is going to happen. She's on the Stone Cold podcast on the WWE network on the award-winning Peacock. And she's telling Stone Cold, and I'm paraphrasing here, there was a time I used to say, thank you for the hot dog. Thank you for the slice of pizza. Thank you for my time in the ring. Thank you for my time on TV. But I'm not at that place anymore. Now it's like, put me on TV, right? On the interview that she gave, what was it, The Athletic? It was The Atlantic. Which was part of the rant I had a couple of months ago, right? But it's before WrestleMania. She's saying that I want my face on the posters. Why would you not get behind someone who has ambition? Someone who is legitimately betting on herself. Someone who is bucking any trend that her current employer is setting for her. Is telling her, no, you have to go down this route. And she's like, no, I'm better than this. I know I'm better than this. I can do better than this. Why would you not stand for that? Why would your best argument then, why would then you start complaining and saying, oh, Sasha Banks, she's such a spoiled little brat, blah, blah, blah. All she does is complain. First of all, and if anyone listening right now has that type of argument, you're about to get deconstructed. First of all, there is a very fair chance that your favorite professional wrestler has griped and moaned and complained to the booker about an issue, about something, about his or her position in the company. It's happened. It's inevitable. The greats have done it. Ric Flair has done it. It's been well documented. Stone Cold Steve Austin has done it. It's been well documented. Bret Hart has done it. It's been well documented. Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. They've all done it. Triple H, Randy Orton. They've all bitched and moaned to management about shit at some point. Because you know what? Here's the plain simple truth. Wrestling is a business that revolves around the squeaky gears. If you stay in your hole and you say, I'm just happy to be here, you're going to be at I'm just happy to be here character for the rest of your life. That's what you're going to be relegated to, whatever role. And you're going to, I'm just happy to be here. They'll walk all over you, they'll do whatever you want. And whatever your career turns out to be, it'll turn out like that. But if you want to be a star, if you want to get up on the card, if you want to make more money, if you want to become an asset for your company, you have to complain. All of your favorite wrestlers have complained at some point. They honestly have. And there's nothing, that's part of the game. That's the first thing. The second thing, no, she complains. She's done it before. She's done it before. Wouldn't that, So if she's complained to management in the past and she's still complaining today, does that mean that her complaints weren't answered that first time around? Or maybe the second time she's done it and now she's doing it a third time because, you know what? Nothing's changing. So I'm hitting the bricks. And that's entirely okay. And she's not an employee. She's an independent contractor. She can hit the bricks whenever right? She's not staff. She's not a member of WWE Corp. She's an independent contractor, right? So she should be able to walk out anytime. Doesn't matter. I know the contracts are ironclad and it's a whole other thing. I know I'm being facetious here. The point here is that I can't even listen to anyone backsassing this, saying she's wrong to do this. Because at some point, and I think she even said this on the Stone Cold podcast, at some point, you're done being just happy to be here, doing the dream job. At some point, it is a job and it is your career, and you have to keep growing your career. So at some point, it's no longer, thank you for the hot dog and the slice of pizza. Now it's more like, I need more airtime, I need better stories, I need to be in the main event. I need to be making movies. Yeah, Disney Studios has me in their eyes. Jon Favreau plucked me off of a YouTube show that I did where I was sitting around just stuffing my face with fucking hot wings, and he saw I was special. How come you don't see how special I am, Vince, Bruce, John? If they don't respect you, you hit the bricks. If they don't respect you, you hit the bricks. And you know what? Naomi is in a great position to do this because look, she's got Sasha Banks. She's backed up by Sasha, right? That's who she's got on her back. It's not fucking, Riddick Moss watching her back. It's not like, the fucking Angel Garza. Sasha Banks. And that took balls for Naomi to do that as well. Doing it as a team. That's commendable. Respect. And especially if Naomi's contract is coming up in a couple of months, she's like, yeah, fuck you. You've been misusing me for years. You've been telling, oh, maybe we'll put you in the bloodline. Oh, maybe not. Oh, we'll just put you in a tag team. Oh, no. What are they going to do? What are they going to do if Sasha Banks leaves? Who's the name? Lacey Evans? Lacey Evans? Is that is this the one we're going to lean into? Ronda? Ronda's nothing. She didn't generate buys to WrestleMania. WrestleMania, I'm underperformed to what WWE wanted. You can bet on it. They did not rent out a 100,000 seat stadium to have it filled up to just shy of 80,000 both nights. No siree. They wanted to fill that puppy up. They wanted to fill it up to capacity to the point where they were like, well, we're going to have to move some structures around. We're going to have to redo the set because we want to open up more seats because we're sold out. They wanted 100K a night, not 78,000 people a night. Trust me. It's not Ronda who's bringing anyone in. And then here's the thing from the report. Your Sasha Banks, keep this right in your brain. You are Sasha fucking Banks. You've got this part-timer weirdo, Ronda Rousey, who couldn't draw a dime if she wanted to, who comes in. Everyone starts treating her like a big deal while you in your heart of hearts, you know you're the big deal. The fans know you're the big deal. You're homegrown. You're part of the WWE system for years. You're part of the women's revolution. You're part of the match that redefined women's wrestling in North America. And you're being told, look, we don't have anything for you for WrestleMania, and we're not going to put any stock and any value into your tag team titles, which we know you really love the tag team titles because you fought for them with your pal, what's her name, Bailey, yeah, your pal Bailey. We know you fought tooth and nail to get these titles, so we know they kind of mean something to you. But over the next 2 months, we're not going to do anything with them, and actually, we're not going to really use them, and we're going to use you to put over Ronda Rousey at the next pay-per-view. Of course, you hit the bricks. I am not jobbing out to Ronda Rousey again. If anything, Ronda owes me. I'm not putting over Ronda Rousey. Hell no. I did it once. She's not doing it again. Why? Because I'm a draw, Vince. I'm a draw. I'm the person who does literally put butts in seats, gets the linear eyeballs on your television stations. That's what I do. Now back to the statement that WWE put out. And this is where a lot of people started going, it's a work. And it's okay. Look, you know what? Fair enough, right? Let me take a sip of water here. I'm a little parched. It's fair enough here. And you've got, that our wrestling radar sort of perks up where you're like, oh, this is a little weird. It's a little unconventional. WWE doesn't usually put out statements, in regards to their talent leaving. This is a little strange, a little bizarre kind of thing. And you're like, oh, cool. This could be a work, but it's not. It's not a work. If it's a work, it is a highly adept one, but it's not a work. They put out this statement, and I'm convinced this is what it is because it is Sasha Banks. If Naomi had walked out alone, they wouldn't have said a goddamn thing. They wouldn't have said a thing. But this is Sasha Banks, who legitimately has contacts in the business, not the wrestling business, the entertainment business, right? She legitimately has contacts. She could turn to anyone, end up on someone's podcast, not the MrWarrenHayes show, like I'm talking about, like an S-tier podcast as opposed to a D-list podcaster like myself, goes on one of these and spills the beans. This statement was WWE getting ahead of a story that they know they fucked up on. And they just want to get the first jab out. They want to get their story out there first because in the world of PR, that's how it works. Whoever gets control of the story, whoever comes after will have to fight against that. So they're in a position of power by doing this right here. This was absolutely called by someone, somewhere in Vince, Johnny Ace, who cares? During the show, we got to put this out by the end of the program. We got to send this out to the media. And you can tell in the tone that they use and the words that they use, absolutely 100%. Whoever wrote this is fed up of Sasha Banks. They don't like her. They're fed up and they want to create it in a moment of character assassination. They named them both, Sasha Banks and Naomi, named them both, and then proceeded to say, well, during the broadcast, they went to talent relations, head of talent relations, John Laurinaitis, with their suitcases and dropped their titles and left. Oh, whoa, how unprecedented, how gauche of them. They claimed they weren't respected enough as tag team champions. Whoa, oh my God. And they had 8 hours to construct their match, and they came at the last minute to do this? You see what they're doing? Do you see what they're doing? And then on top of that, they're saying that they said they were uncomfortable in the statement, right? They claim that Sasha and Naomi said that they were uncomfortable in the ring with their two opponents, who are heavily rumored to be Naomi and Nikki Ash, right? Which of course makes no sense because they have all wrestled each other in the past. And this is character assassination. This is high school, this is middle school bullshit drama. Well, I heard that Jessica really doesn't like you. Really? Yeah. She thinks you walk funny. Okay. You see what this does? It just sets these seeds to create the impression, the worst impression that you can give any wrestler when they leave a company. What is the absolute worst thing that you could say about a wrestler when they leave a company? They're hard to work with. They're difficult to work with. That's the killing jab for wrestling fans. Was like, oh, they're difficult to work with. So as I was saying earlier, you remember when I was talking about how your favorites have all complained about something about their booking at some point, right? Well, here's something else. At some point, all of your favorites have been difficult to work with. Do you know why? Because there's fucking hundreds of people in the wrestling business and not everyone gets along. And you are going to work with people who are going to rub you the wrong way, might just be because of actual things that happen or just because you don't get along, because chemistry-wise it just doesn't connect, right? There are people like that. There will always be someone who is hard to work with someone else, unequivocally. And this is what they're doing here in this statement. Getting ahead of it. Character assassination. They're going after the jugular because Sasha Banks has contacts in the business, because she is doing these gigs with Kevin Hart and on Star Wars without WWE's help. The promo introduction she did with some college football stuff, which I don't know about because I don't watch college football. All of this shit she's been getting without WWE, without them getting involved, because otherwise you can be damn sure that WWE would be pimping the hell out of it. They'd be promoting the hell. Why wasn't Sasha Banks' role on The Mandalorian a thing in WWE? Why? Because they chose not to. because they're bitter fucks. That's why. And you can tell how bitter they are because of the statement they put out. They had 8 hours to construct their match. Sure, pal. 8 hours to construct your match, right up until Vince starts tearing up the scripts 5 minutes before going on air. Yeah. We know how this shit goes. And note the tone. Monday Night Raw is a scripted live TV show whose characters are expected to perform the requirements of their contract. This is like the most backhanded, you know what? We have legal recourse comment you could find in this. And then of course, like the most laughable line in this entire thing. We regret we were unable to deliver as advertised tonight's main event. Do you know how many times you should put out a statement for that? That you were unable to deliver as advertised tonight's main event? Fuck me. I don't have to pick sides. There's no reason to pick sides. But I'm pro Sasha Banks. I'm pro anyone who stands up for themselves. I'm pro, especially at the level where she is, the value that she provides to that company. It's ridiculous. Now, what's her next move? Oh, by the way, want to say hello to Kristen Ashley, the first lady of the Mr. Warren Hayes show. Yeah. Hello, darling, and welcome. And I also want to say hello to Safet, aka Sejo Saho BX NYC. Safet, nice to see you and welcome to the Mr. Warren Hayes show. Here's a kicker though. What does she do next? What is next for Sasha Banks moving forward? That's the crux of what we want to talk about here. Sasha Banks and my pal Jeff Hawkins. I'll call him my pal. Jeff Hawkins over at Shake Them Ropes podcast and so on. Former Fightful alum as I tweeted out, Sasha is the only 4-horsewoman that is a game changer. She is the only one. She's a true to form game changer. If she shows up on AEW Dynamite, as she is draining, they will not go under 1 million total viewers for months, as long as she's on TV on a regular basis. Sasha is a legitimate game changer. And WWE knows this. They're not going to let her slink out of her contract. They're not going to let her go off and do whatever. She's too much of a commodity. They know this. Best case scenario, they let the contract run out. But quite frankly, I don't think she goes anywhere wrestling related. I think once she's done with WWE, she goes and, you know, let's say right now she's dipping her toes in the water of pro wrestling, of Hollywood, excuse me. If she's dipping her toe in the waters of Hollywood right now, if she leaves WWE, it's to jump right in. It's to cannonball in. It's to just like recklessly, without knowing the depth of the pool, diving in head first. That's what she's doing. I don't think she goes to AEW. I think she goes to AEW if a couple of years down the line, she realizes that her post WWE career isn't exactly going her way. What does she do? Well, she cycles back to where she knows she's a star, where she can get paid and be recognized as a top female, the wrestling biz. Maybe then she calls Tony Khan and says, Tony, let's talk. But as it stands right now, I really don't think she goes back to wrestling. As much as I'd like her to go to AEW and force Tony Khan's hand to hire her and put her on TV regularly and have more force AEW to put on more than one women's match per show. Because I think that would be an inevitability. I think that would be really cool. As much as I'd like her to go to Japan for a tour, because she's trained with Meiko Satomura, right? And I've said this before. I'm on record and I'll say it again. Sasha's the most talented of the four horsewomen, wrestling-wise. She's a fantastic wrestler. And the way she's produced in WWE does not allow her to shine like she could. Let's go to Japan. Let's go hang around TJPW, Stardom, I don't know, but freelance where it is freelanceable. Ice Ribbon, TGPW, Tokyo Pro, right? Let's go around there. Let's freelance that a bit. Get some Joshi in there. Show us those kicks. Boom, boom, boom. I'd be down for it. Naomi's position is a little trickier. I think Naomi could wrestle anywhere she wants. I really do. And I think she could. There could be a case made for her going to AEW. I think she could go about it another way. Maybe hitting the indies a little bit. Doing a bit of a Matt Cardona thing, where you come down from the Fed, you hit the indies, you build some cred like that, and, you reignite your star. You make it shinier. I think that's a different way of approaching it. Because she's not as big a star as Sasha. I think, if she did join AEW, there would be a bit of a awesome, kind of thing. But depending on how she's booked, of course, I feel it would wear off a little bit. And I mean, look, and I want to say hello to Alonzo Smith. Nice to see you, Alonzo, and welcome. And, brings an interesting point here in the chat, as to, because this is something I did see. I wish, Naomi and Sasha could have gone about this a whole different way, right? Look, we can't be as short-sighted to say, oh, well, they just didn't want to do the storyline. That's why they hit the bricks, right? That's short-sighted. I don't think that's a fair assessment. I really don't. If it came to the point where they have exploded, where they felt the only recourse they had was to pick up and leave, I would assume, and I think it is fair to say that, and there's even been a few reports, a few rumors floating around that this is not the first discussion that they've had about problems that they've had. Sasha's been having, multiple, or at least a few issues with her contracts, so on and so forth. So I think this is a reaction. It's an unreasonable reaction, perhaps, but it is the only way. Sometimes an unreasonable reaction is the only way to react to an unreasonable situation that you are put into. So I have no issue with them going, you know what, I've had enough, and I'm walking out. And I will point out that there wasn't this uproar in this, well, I wish you had done something else, when it came to Tony Storm, who did essentially the same thing. It was like, you know what, I'm out of here. Or Jeff Hardy. These people were like, yeah, good job. For some reason, and we're not diving into this on a middle-aged white man's podcast, because it's not my place to say, but I have some theories. For some reason, Sasha pulling this is bad move. You should have checked your attitude. You're acting spoiled here. Whereas when people pick up and leave, they're heralded as somewhat heroes to a degree.